Hey there, story lovers. Welcome to Panda Tale. I'm so glad you're here to share in the magic of storytelling with us. Sit back, relax, and prepare to be transported to worlds of wonder. Your next favorite tale is just a play button away. In my husband's heart, there was a bright moonlight. For 5 years, we were husband and wife together. After being reborn and living again, on the day when his bright moonlight was in danger, that was also the day my family was surrounded by rebels in the outskirts. This time, he didn't come to save my family like in the previous life. Instead, he rode his horse to save his bright moonlight. Hearing the sound of horse hooves outside, I breathed a sigh of relief. Reinforcements had arrived. In the previous life, during the dark and windy night, Sebastian wore black armor and charged into the rebel army to save me. Sebastian's appearance was handsome and distinguished, and he was an undefeated war god, skilled in battle and brave like a deity descending to save the suffering world. I couldn't help but fall in love with him at first sight. Being reborn at this dangerous moment, I didn't have time to think about anything else, worriedly looking up at the silent moon, quietly calculating when Sebastian would arrive. My father's army had already lost more than half, and those still alive were exhausted, fighting while retreating, having to divide their attention to protect us. My mother and Nanny Lynn led me to hide behind the soldiers, struggling to run toward the earthen mounds in the distance to take cover. The sound of wind tearing through the air reached us. A soldier leaped forward to help me, but an arrow pierced him, his blood staining my dress red. Right before my eyes, a life was lost. I opened my mouth, but hadn't yet understood what was happening when my mother hurriedly covered my eyes. Clearly, she was so frightened her voice trembled, but she still tried to comfort me. "It's nothing, Luna. Father has brought soldiers to charge forward. We just need to wait a little longer. Reinforcements are coming soon. When reinforcements arrive, we'll be safe." In the previous life, after I married Sebastian, this wasn't the first time I followed the army to the battlefield, nor was it the first time I witnessed killing. It's just that in the previous life, no soldier had to die to save me. The moon had risen high overhead, yet Sebastian was still nowhere to be seen. What scared me most was that everything today wasn't happening as it did in my memories. I feared unexpected changes would occur. This feeling of unease didn't last long. The rebels, realizing they couldn't win, turned to frantically shooting fire arrows toward where we were hiding. The dry grass in autumn would burst into flames with just a spark. We had no choice but to emerge from the pit and flee from the burning area. After gritting our teeth and running forward, the sounds of arrows, horse hooves, and fighting gradually diminished. The victor of this battle was my father. Before I could relax, I felt a heavy weight pressing down on me. Instinctively, I reached out to catch it. It was my mother. Mother collapsed into my arms. Nanny sobbed while saying, Madam has been hit by an arrow. Her clothes were soaked with blood. My hand touched that burning liquid. It was my mother's blood. Mother's blood stained my hand completely red. I couldn't control my whole body trembling. My lady, how do you feel? At this moment, my father also rushed over with his men, lifting my mother from my arms onto a horse, then hurriedly searching for the nearest camp to treat her wounds. In my haste, I also forgot that at this time in the previous life, I still didn't know how to ride a horse. After randomly finding a horse, I mounted it and galloped at full speed following my father toward the camp. While I was hurriedly riding, I didn't notice someone beside me. The sound of a medicine bowl falling and breaking rang out. By inertia, I turned toward the source of the sound. Oh, it turned out to be Sebastian. He had been holding a bowl of medicine in his hand. I was going too fast and accidentally bumped into him, causing the medicine bowl to shatter. A gentle voice came from inside the tent. Brother Sebastian, what happened? I stood there for a long time before recognizing who owned this voice. This voice belonged to Grace. That's right, she was Sebastian's frail beloved Moonlight. Sebastian looked at me with a heavy gaze, then nodded at me without saying another word, turned and went into the tent to Grace. In my heart now, I was only worried about my mother's wound and had no time to pay attention to him. But before leaving, I happened to overhear him speaking softly to Grace, explaining, "It's nothing, I was careless and spilled the medicine. I'll make you another bowl later." I didn't care anymore. Fortunately, the military doctor was able to save my mother in time. Mother's arrow wound wasn't deep, but she had lost too much blood and needed careful care. Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief and personally took the prescription from the doctor, intending to brew the medicine myself. Walking to the camp entrance, thinking about just encountering Sebastian, I stopped. "Nanny, take this prescription to get the herbs and brew them for Mother. I'll stay by her side to care for her and wait for Mother to wake up." After the chaotic turmoil earlier, my mind was now much clearer. Now I understood why he was here, and also understood why this life was different from the previous one. Sebastian had chosen not to bring reinforcements to save us. That's right. The day I died on the battlefield was also the day he died. If I could be reborn, then naturally he could be reborn too. He knew clearly what would happen that day, so he made the choice to go save Grace, considering it compensation for the regret of losing his beloved Moonlight in the previous life. As for whether he thought about the possibility of me being in danger, because he changed his decision, probably not. Looking at it, even when we had been married for 10 years, we were only husband and wife in name. In front of everyone, we performed a show of loving and happy married couple. From beginning to end, he had never shown any affection toward me. I myself also had self-respect and knew clearly that he didn't love me at all, so I always pretended that I also had no feelings for him. When Nanny returned, she not only brought back the medicine bowl, but also led along the person I least wanted to see right now, Sebastian. At this moment, I was quietly crying while tightly holding my mother's ice-cold hand. When I looked up at him, I saw a flash of guilt in the depths of his eyes, so quick that I thought it was just my imagination. I understood clearly that right now we weren't husband and wife yet, nor did we have any relationship with each other that would require him to choose to save me first. Compared to my mother's wound, Grace's life was even more important. Although I understood this clearly, I still couldn't help but feel some resentment. Even hiding my true emotions, I was too lazy to pretend with him. Sebastian quietly looked at me for a while, then asked me, "Luna, could you step outside with me? I have a few things I want to say to you." He called me by a more intimate name. This way of speaking only appeared after we got married. Oh, he must have seen me riding back to camp earlier and guessed that I had also been reborn. Hearing him say this, I wiped away the tears on my face and hid all my emotions before replying. "My mother is severely injured. Right now I'm not in the mood to listen to anyone. I only want to stay by Mother's side and wait for her to wake up." Sebastian stood there silently for a long time, until a strange voice outside the tent called him, "General Sebastian, the young lady's wound is hurting again. The young lady wants to invite you to take a look." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Oh, I didn't know the general had changed professions to become a doctor. At this time, my father happened to pass by and heard these words, "Luna, don't be rude to Sebastian." My father and Sebastian were both only in their 20s. I pretended to be obediently silent, watching my father put his arm around Sebastian's shoulder as they walked out together. The current emperor had no sons, so before his death, he had secretly entrusted my father, who was also his close friend from childhood, with a secret edict to pass the throne to him. Although in this life Sebastian didn't personally come to rescue our entire family, he had sent all his elite subordinates. My father was still, just like in the previous life, extremely grateful for his life-saving grace. Father handed him the imperial edict as well as the opportunity to assist the new emperor. The prince died when he was very young, but he had managed to leave behind a son in the world. He was a very talented person and also gentle and kind. Sebastian accepted the edict to find the heir, then escorted him back to the capital and supported his ascension to the throne. From then on, Sebastian became the person the new emperor trusted most. In the previous life, Sebastian and I were granted marriage because the new emperor wanted to reclaim the military power from my father's hands, and give it to someone he trusted to take over, namely Sebastian. Sure enough, after a while, the sound of carriages and horses came from outside. This journey was extremely dangerous. In the previous life, Sebastian was hit by an arrow in the chest and left with a saber wound on his back. I couldn't help but stand up, intending to go outside and remind him to be more careful on the road. My hand had just placed on the curtain, and before I could lift it, I heard Sebastian speaking to my father outside. Being valued by the general, Sebastian will definitely not disappoint this trust. It's just that my cousin is currently severely injured. I hope the general will take extra care of her. My father agreed in a low voice. My hand clenched into a fist and then relaxed. I felt my worry was unnecessary. After a while, Sebastian's voice rang out, "Sister Luna, this meeting was a bit rushed. After I finish handling this matter, Sebastian will come to visit you and your mother." I lifted the curtain and stepped outside. Sebastian was mounted on a tall, spirited horse, both magnificent and imposing. I smiled coldly at him. "No need for visits. From now on, it's better if we have nothing to do with each other." Sebastian pretended not to understand what I was saying, only leaving behind one sentence: "Wait for me to return to find you." Then he led his soldiers away. I watched Sebastian until the yellow sand and night gradually swallowed his figure. In my heart, I consciously bid him farewell. He had found the woman he had missed for many years, and I disdained inserting myself into other people's love. Let it be this way. From now on, each person will be safe and sound, treating the previous life as if it never existed. Because I had never made his heart flutter, my mother had to recuperate in the camp for more than half a month before her wound gradually healed. News of Sebastian escorting the new emperor back to the capital for his coronation also spread throughout the country. My father brought our entire family along with the master and servant Grace back to the capital. Because the number of carriages was limited, Grace was arranged to ride in the same carriage as me. Her personal maid and my wet nurse both sat in the carriage for servants behind us. Her wound was slightly more serious than my mother's. She had fallen from the carriage and been injured by a sharp stone on her back, and her internal organs were also seriously damaged. On the road, her complexion was pale, looking like she could collapse at any moment. After she coughed continuously, I poured her a cup of hot tea to drink to soothe her throat. Grace reached out to take the teacup but accidentally let it fall and shatter completely. She smiled embarrassedly at me and said softly, "I'm really sorry, Sister Luna. Right now my hands and feet have no strength at all. I really make people feel pity." I thought about my previous life, thought about how Sebastian was always cold and indifferent to me after our marriage. To attract his attention, I risked my life trying to remember Grace's mannerisms. She wore white robes, spoke gently, walked slowly. What did Sebastian say when he saw me? He questioned me about why I had to try so hard to act and pretend, telling me to live honestly as myself. At that time, I was hurt by his words and even felt sad for a long time. He loved her so much that he couldn't accept outsiders imitating her appearance. Now that I had close contact with the real Grace, I realized that Sebastian's words back then still had some humanity. I was fundamentally just imitating clumsily. Grace was naturally born with a frail appearance that made people want to protect her upon seeing her. I hesitated a bit, but then still poured a new cup of tea and sat down beside Grace, bringing the teacup close to her mouth. "Drink it." After finishing the tea, Grace looked up at me gratefully and said, "Sister Luna is so kind-hearted. No wonder Sebastian pays such attention to you." She deliberately mentioned Sebastian to see my reaction. Any good feelings I had for her because of her fragile appearance suddenly dissipated like smoke. I laughed and sat back in my place, replying to her, "You don't need to test me. I also hope that Sebastian and I will have no entanglements from now on." When passing through a county town, I brought Nanny along with a team of guards to separate from my father's main army. The soldier who died saving me had a household registration in a small village in this county town. My father told me that the soldier's parents had died early, and he and his younger brother had relied on each other to grow up. I came here to find this younger brother and wanted to bring him back to our estate to take care of him. The debt of saving one's life was as heavy as a mountain. I had to repay them well. When I saw Adrian, I was a bit surprised. A 15-year-old boy who grew up in a small county town was usually very lively and outgoing, but he was a very quiet child. When I appeared at his door, he was sitting under a tree reading. Seeing a group of people approaching, he looked up, and the book in his hands fell to the ground. As something happened to my brother. Although it was just a question, his tone was very certain. I stepped forward to help him pick up the book and handed it back to him with both hands. I am the only daughter of the Northern General. On the day the rebels rose up, your brother blocked a sword for me. Adrian replied, "Where is my brother's body? It has been properly placed in an ice coffin and will be transported here in the next day or two. There's a saying about fallen leaves returning to their roots. The main purpose of my trip is to bring our benefactor back to his hometown." Hearing this, Adrian nodded without saying anything more. He stood under the tree's shadow, his expression extremely sorrowful. His eyes were red, yet his posture remained straight. His bearing was so mature that he didn't look like a 15-year-old boy. I saw the hand holding the book trembling slightly. My heart felt extremely guilty and uncomfortable. I couldn't help but step forward and grasp his hand tightly. "I feel deeply guilty for causing you to lose your only relative. After your brother's burial is complete, I will take you back to the Ning estate. From now on, I will be your family." Adrian didn't refuse to return to our estate with me, but he refused my father's kindness in wanting to adopt him as a son. He had already passed the provincial examination, so I only made one request, that he could come to the library to study. My father agreed without needing to save face or go through back doors. Father secretly told me that he really liked Adrian. This young man had literary talent and strategic thinking, and would definitely achieve great success in the future. Hearing this, I was also a bit surprised. Adrian grew up in a remote, barren small county, and the education he received wasn't the best either. But he was still able to pass the provincial examination at such a young age. It could be said that his future would definitely be bright as silk. Tomorrow was Adrian's first day off after starting school. When it got dark, I had someone drive a carriage to his school to pick him up after classes. I was extremely happy during this journey. When I met Adrian, I was amazed to discover he had grown so tall. Boys this age grow like mushrooms. He had grown another section taller. I asked Adrian with concern how he had been living recently, whether living with his classmates was good. He had always been a man of few words, and when answering questions, he was also extremely concise. I didn't pay attention to his cold way of speaking and took out a baked pastry from my clothes to give him. "This is a baked pastry from Big Bull's shop in the East City. It's very delicious. It's just that Mother doesn't allow us to eat random things outside. Eat it quickly here, then we'll go home together." While waiting for Adrian to eat the pastry, I unexpectedly saw Sebastian. This was the first time we had met since the new emperor's coronation. "Luna, why are you here?" I asked him back. "Then why are you here?" Lord Sebastian was the only male in his clan, and he had no younger brothers or sisters of school age either. While I was talking with him, someone ran out from inside calling toward him, "Cousin." I turned to look. Oh, it was an acquaintance. Grace's younger brother Gregory. In the previous life, when Sebastian and I got married, he felt I had stolen his sister's man. He came to cause trouble at our door twice while drunk. Sebastian, seeing my unhappy expression, said to Gregory, "Little Gregory, stand here and chat with your classmate for a bit." After saying this, he turned to me. "Could we talk over there for a moment?" I was afraid he would say something related to the previous life in front of the servants and Adrian, so I nodded and prepared to walk with him to a corner on the other side. Halfway there, I couldn't continue walking. I turned back to see Adrian grasping my sleeve and refusing to let go. I smiled at him. "I'll just say a few words with him and come right back. I won't make you wait too long." Sebastian and I walked to a nearby corner and stopped. I asked him, "Speak. What is it?" He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Instead, he asked me, "Who is that boy? Why do you need to pick him up from school?" I frowned unhappily and glanced at him. "What does it have to do with you?" Sebastian was cut off by my response and switched to another topic. "Are you angry with me? So you're deliberately finding someone else to provoke me? What nonsense are you talking about? He's just a child. How could I have such intentions toward him? What exactly is in your head?" In my previous life, when I died, I was already 28 years old. My psychological age was 13 years older than Adrian's. Sebastian lowered his voice and gritted his teeth. "That boy's gaze when looking at you is bright and passionate, not the kind of look a child should have. It's clearly the same as yours back then." I asked curiously, "What was mine like back then? Why did you stop talking halfway?" Before Sebastian could respond, Adrian's voice rang out from behind. "I'm finished eating. Can we go home now?" I turned and left without even bothering to say a proper goodbye to Sebastian. His cousin is still waiting for him to go home together. The weather gradually became warmer. At the beginning of spring the following year, my father again led troops to the north to guard the frontier. Father asked me whether I wanted to go with him and mother or stay in the capital. Without any hesitation, I chose to go to the north. Although the north was just a desolate and barren place, it had vast open skies and earth. I had been strictly supervised since childhood, so I also wanted to go to such a free and easy place. In the previous life, because I wanted to make Sebastian happy, I chose to stay alone in the capital, secretly hoping to find opportunities to have more contact with him. Now that I had decided to give up on him, naturally I would want to go as far away as possible. I was even afraid that His Majesty would decree a marriage between Sebastian and me. Adrian had now become accustomed to life in the capital. I asked him whether he wanted me to stay or not. He replied, "No need. If you want to go, then go." In the 3rd month of the 3rd year, when news of Adrian winning the top scholar position reached me, I was pestering my father to teach me swordsmanship. I had memorized military books by heart since childhood. In the previous life, when following the army, I had countless times devised strategies for Sebastian. The only thing lacking in me was that my martial arts value was too low. I couldn't even beat a stray dog that the military doctor kept. "Father and mother have spoiled you since childhood. The sword hilt is thick and the armor is heavy. Your hands are both slender and short, how could you possibly hold them?" Father once again refused me. I huffed and prepared to throw a tantrum and cry with him. Father then pulled out a letter from his chest and said, "This boy Adrian is indeed a rare talent. This year, he just participated in the spring examination and has already passed as the top scholar. Prepare yourself, we need to return to the capital to congratulate him." Oh! I was startled and stepped back. In my heart, boundless joy arose. My goodness! Someone who becomes the top scholar at only 18 years old. There haven't been many throughout history. I clicked my tongue and sighed. What a pity that father didn't accept him as an adopted son back then. Otherwise, our ancestors' graves would be smoking green by now. After saying this, I hurriedly went back to my storage room. Living at the border, there were often many rare and beautiful playthings. I had collected quite a lot there. Now I was looking for a precious object to use as a congratulatory gift for Adrian. On the way back to the capital, when passing through Adrian's hometown, I brought guards to bid farewell to my father and went toward the small village. I brought Adrian's news of becoming the top scholar to his brother's grave. The benefactor had been gone for more than 3 years now. Under the yellow springs, if he knew that his only relative had become the top scholar, he would surely be at peace. After living several years of stable life, my psychological vigilance wasn't as strong as before. Walking out from the benefactor's grave, a group of masked men in black suddenly appeared and surrounded me and the guards beside me. The 2 guards beside me reacted very quickly and immediately drew their swords to prepare for counterattack. I raised my hand asking them to stop. "Don't move. Fighting back now would just be throwing our lives away." The leader, seeing that the 3 of us had given up resistance, laughed coldly. Miss Ning is indeed a smart person, knowing that resistance is futile. Since that's the case, then obediently come with us for a trip. I was bound hand and foot and imprisoned alone in a dark carriage. I didn't know in which direction the carriage was speeding. I tried to strike up a conversation with them, wanting to ask where they intended to take me, but no one bothered to answer me the entire way. When I asked too many times, threatening sounds came from outside. Miss Ning, if you keep talking, I'll cut out your tongue. I shut my mouth and remained silent. The other guards at the inn would discover there was a problem when it got dark and I still hadn't returned. My father's convoy should not have gone too far yet. If they knew I was missing, father would definitely turn back to save me. This group didn't look like common bandits. I guess they wanted to use me as bait to threaten my father. I didn't know what they wanted to force my father to do for them. When I was blindfolded and pushed into a small, cramped room, and the black cloth was removed, I realized I had guessed wrong. I saw someone beyond my expectations. Grace. Like me, she was bound hand and foot. We both saw the fear in each other's eyes. Grace asked me, "Why are you here?" The black-clothed man laughed mockingly. "What? Don't you know why she was brought here?" After saying this, he stuffed black cloth into both Grace's and my mouths. I couldn't help but roll my eyes silently. This person originally hadn't thought to gag us, but Grace's question reminded him. After they left, Grace managed to make some muffled sounds. I leaned against the corner of the wall and lowered my head to think. Earlier, I had guessed that this group captured me because they wanted to threaten my father. But now, seeing Grace, my thoughts became somewhat confused. The only connection between Grace and me was Sebastian. But in this life, Sebastian and I had no involvement whatsoever. Why would this group still capture us both together? Also, why did that black-clothed man say such a puzzling sentence? Could it be that bastard Sebastian, taking advantage of my absence from the capital, was spreading rumors about my relationship with him? I inched closer to Grace and used the rope around my feet to touch hers. She looked toward me. I tried to make sounds wanting to ask how long she had been imprisoned here, but could only make sounds. Grace responded with sounds. Neither of us could understand the other. Communication failed. We both fell silent. I told myself to just wait a little longer. Just a little more, and it would be dawn. Father would receive news of my disappearance and would definitely turn every stone to find my whereabouts. I waited and waited, from dawn to dusk, but didn't wait for my father. Instead, I waited for Sebastian. The black-clothed men brought Grace and me out. Only then did I discover we were currently standing on a mountaintop. The two of us were pushed by the captors to the edge of the cliff. Archers lay in ambush all around. Two black-clothed men calmly guarded Grace and me. The feeling of unease in my heart grew stronger and stronger. After waiting until Sebastian arrived with a team of horsemen, the leader finally spoke. "General Sebastian, Song has been respectfully waiting for you for a long time." While speaking, he removed his face mask and asked Sebastian, "I wonder if General Sebastian still remembers Song." So this bandit actually had some connection with Sebastian. Looking at him, I had thought the black-clothed man must have an extremely fierce appearance. Sebastian said in a low voice, "Thomas Song, your wife's death was beyond my control. Now you've kidnapped daughters of court officials. Is this what your wife would have wanted?" My arm was tied tightly to Grace's. I gently nudged her with my body. "Don't mention your wife's wishes to me. My beloved is dead, so living has no meaning for me anymore. That day you gave me no other choice, but today I'm giving you an opportunity to choose. Of these two women, I'll release one person. One person will fall down the mountain with me. General Sebastian, have you thought it through clearly?" The night wind howled at the bottom of the ravine. I could barely hear clearly which name Sebastian finally spoke, but I didn't need to hear clearly. I knew he would definitely choose Grace. From the moment he was reborn and gave up the choice to come save our family, I understood that whenever it came to choosing between Grace and me, I would definitely be the one abandoned. Sebastian looked at me, 10,000 struggles appearing in his eyes. Then he raised his hand and pointed toward me, speaking word by word. I want her to live. Grace, with cloth stuffed in her mouth, struggled to make choked sobbing sounds. I turned to look at her with some disbelief, then looked at Sebastian. He was also looking at me intently, emotions in his eyes unclear, his eye sockets so red they were about to spill tears. Between Grace and me, he actually chose me. Clearly he hoped Grace could live well, thinking about and missing her for so many years. Before I could think clearly, my throat entirely let out a strange laugh. You chose wrong. I just felt my shoulder being pushed hard. The feeling of losing balance came over me. As I was falling, I saw Sebastian leap toward the cliff without any hesitation and jump down. He reached out toward me while shouting something I couldn't hear clearly. I don't know if this was a hallucination before death or not. I heard the voices of my parents shouting my name. After the pain passed, my vision went completely dark, and I fell into a state of unconsciousness. Marrying Luna to me is unfair to her. I promise her that in this life I won't take concubines. What about a princess? Having her is enough for me. If she wants to offer strategies and gain my trust, she is a person with wisdom. I seemed to fall into a dream, trapped in memories of the previous life, unable to escape. In the previous life, except for not loving me, Sebastian actually treated me quite well. My parents were a couple for life, so when I married Sebastian, my only requirement for him was that he not take concubines. He agreed and kept his word. Even when a princess favored him and actively wanted to become his concubine, he very seriously refused. My father felt that daughters were like delicate flowers that should be nurtured at home. But Sebastian respected my decision to go to the front lines and allowed me to follow the army as a military strategist. While thinking about my father, I suddenly heard a painful crying sound right beside me. My father, a man 8 feet tall, I had grown so big yet had never seen father cry before. The curious thought of wanting to see his appearance made my consciousness gradually become clearer. I'm awake. Luna, open your eyes. I opened my eyes and immediately saw my father sitting disabled in front of me, tears streaming down his face. I used all my remaining strength to say one sentence. So father looks this ugly when he cries. My consciousness alternated between clear and hazy, but every time I woke up, I saw Adrian keeping watch by my bedside, looking like a stone statue that couldn't speak. What a pity that the happy time for his becoming the top scholar was affected by me. I felt guilty and smiled at him. Wait until my injuries heal. I'll throw you a really big banquet to celebrate properly. Fortunately, the cliff where I fell had many vines that helped cushion the fall. Below was a river, so I didn't end up smashed to pieces. My father said Sebastian was injured even more severely than me. Clearly his leg was completely broken. Yet he still carried my unconscious body and walked a long distance until he placed me on dry grass before he fainted from excessive blood loss. After saying this, my father pushed the caretaker out of the room and asked me, "Daughter, His Majesty heard about what happened to you too, and has the intention of arranging a marriage. Do you want to marry Sebastian or not?" My first reaction was to refuse, but thinking about Sebastian choosing me at the cliff without any hesitation, and when I was pushed off the cliff, he actually jumped down because of righteousness, wanting to die together with me, afraid there would be swept away by the water. He endured the pain and carried me away to another place. In my heart, I momentarily hesitated. Perhaps he also paid some attention to me. Perhaps the relationship between him and Grace wasn't that kind of romantic feeling. It's just that in the previous life, he and I didn't communicate much, and I didn't understand how to love someone properly. So there were many things we didn't understand about each other, leading to misunderstandings. Until today, I lowered my head and avoided my father's gaze, saying to him, "Give me some time to think about it." I lay in bed recuperating for several days. The discomfort in my body had decreased considerably. My parents finally allowed me to go outside for a walk. While sunbathing in the courtyard, I heard a servant report that Sebastian had arrived at the door to deliver a message. My personal maid brought in a letter. I opened it to see Sebastian's handwriting. He asked to meet me at the wine shop in the city in the afternoon, and also mentioned the marriage arrangement, saying he wanted to discuss it with me. Finally, he added a sentence. To continue our past relationship, I pray that we won't be able to live together for 2 lifetimes. This was the first time he had spoken words revealing his feelings to me. My maid, who was keeping watch beside me, suddenly said in alarm, "Miss, why is your face so red? Are your wounds hurting again?" I lowered my head to cover my face. The sun is a bit hot, making my face red. Stepping back into the same path requires a lot of courage. But if Sebastian also had feelings for me like I had for him, then it wouldn't be impossible to live another life with him. In the previous life, because of my pride, I had never confessed my feelings to him. If in this life I could be honest with him, perhaps I could melt this iceberg. Thinking this way, I stood up and walked toward my father's study. I wanted to first tell my father that I was willing to marry. When I reached outside the study, I accidentally ran into Adrian, who was coming out from inside. At noon, the sunlight was dazzling and brilliant. When he looked toward me, the gaze in his eyes hadn't yet been concealed. In those eyes were countless love and admiration, missing nothing. This gaze looked somewhat familiar. During the early period when I had just married Sebastian, every day when I looked in the mirror, I would see this same gaze. My hand involuntarily clenched tightly. In my head, the words that Sebastian had inadvertently blurted out 3 years ago suddenly rang out. "That boy looks at you with bright, passionate eyes, clearly the same as yours back then." I stared at Adrian, suddenly understanding the rest of the sentence Sebastian hadn't finished. "That boy looks at you with bright, passionate eyes, clearly the same as the gaze you gave me back then." Suddenly, I didn't want to enter the study anymore. I turned and walked outside. I wanted to go ask Sebastian something. Had he always known about the admiration I had for him, but he deliberately ignored and trampled on my feelings. When I stepped out to the gate, I was stopped by Grace. She was carrying gifts to visit and ask about my health. She stopped me and asked if I was going to find Sebastian. "Do you think the person Sebastian wanted to save that day was you?" I took a deep breath and stepped aside to let Grace into the small courtyard. "What do you mean by what you just said at the gate?" Grace still maintained her gentle smile on her face, but opened her mouth to say words that went straight to people's hearts. "Cousin has been dealing with Thomas Song for more than 2 years. Cousin understands him just as well as he understands Cousin. From the very beginning, Cousin already knew that the person he chose would definitely be pushed off the mountain by Thomas Song." In this moment, I suddenly awakened and realized, when Sebastian reached out toward me, the look in his eyes wasn't heartbreak that moved him to tears, but shock and shame. So he had already guessed the outcome. I would be the one pushed off the mountain. A bitter, sweet taste rose in my throat, joy and sorrow intertwined, pressing on my internal organs until they ached. I pulled out a dagger from my chest and held it against Grace's neck, forcing her to answer. "You're so clever. There's one thing you definitely know. Sebastian and I haven't had any contact for 3 years now. Why did that bandit come looking for me?" Grace paid no attention to the dagger at her neck and said, "I was alone and afraid. So I accidentally mentioned your name to Thomas Song. He then brought you back to be my companion. I had already known that when the situation was urgent and chaotic, I had no way to concentrate and think. After waking up, I carefully considered and guessed that my capture was most likely related to Grace. I asked her, 'Do you think Sebastian, the person you love, would accept knowing this selfish, self-serving, and vicious side of yours?' Unexpectedly, Grace seemed to hear a joke and laughed mockingly, looking at me carefully. 'I already told Cousin long ago that, because I misspoke, you were captured. Didn't he tell you? Then he probably also didn't tell you that he has already forgiven me on your behalf.' Disgusted with these two people of the same type, shameless and nauseating to the extreme, what you did will naturally be punished by law. Sebastian's forgiveness is worth shit." After saying this, I put away the dagger and called for servants to throw Grace out the door. I locked myself in my room, looking at the slanting sunlight filtering through the window. After I woke up from the coma, my father had a small, sharp dagger made for me, sharp enough that a hair falling on it would cut in two. The servants wanted to follow me, but I refused. Alone, I rode a horse through a long street, arriving at the wine shop in the city, walking into the private room where Sebastian had arranged to meet. During the recovery period, Sebastian and I hadn't seen each other. At this time, his whole person had become thin, his complexion somewhat haggard, but when he saw me, his eyes lit up and he smiled at me. He tried hard to appear very spirited. "Luna, His Majesty has the intention of arranging a marriage for us. Are you willing to marry me once more?" I looked into Sebastian's eyes and asked him, "In the previous life, did you always know that I loved you?" His eyes showed some evasion, and he instinctively touched his waist twice. This was his natural reflex whenever I exposed his wrongdoings. I continued asking him, "You knew I loved you, yet you didn't care about my face. You put Grace's memorial tablet in the ancestral hall like a proper wife's tablet for daily worship." Sebastian shook his head, wanting to explain. "I owed my cousin. I'm no longer interested in what kind of feelings he had for Grace." I fiercely slapped him, then continued asking, "To gain your favor, I tried my best to restrain my personality, deliberately imitating Grace's speaking style and behavior. How did you treat me? I followed the army as your aide, suffering to learn horseback riding until my thighs were chafed raw and my hands were scraped bloody, even falling from horses and injuring my legs. How did you treat me? Haven't you countless times mocked me in your heart, thinking, look at this foolish woman. Look at her tearing out her heart and lungs for me. I just need to stand aside pretending to be ignorant of everything and enjoy it." So you weren't unaware of my feelings. You clearly understood everything, but you pretended to be confused and casually trampled on my sincere heart. After saying all this, I couldn't help but shed tears, feeling unworthy for my previous life self. In this life, I almost wanted to be with him again. How pathetic, loving him once I turned myself into a joke. Sebastian gently touched where I had hit him, lowered his head and sighed. When he raised his head, his eye sockets were also red. He said, "My mother died saving you. Before she died, she entrusted my cousin to me. In the previous life, because of my negligence, I caused my cousin to lose her life. In my heart, I felt guilty beyond measure and couldn't calmly be a loving couple with you for a lifetime. In this life, I saved my cousin's life, repaying the debt to my deceased mother. My cousin and I no longer have any connection. Actually, I've loved you since those early days of living together." I angrily wiped away my tears and looked at him disappointedly. "So what you owed was repaid by relying on hurting me to compensate. 10 years of marital affection, except for disdain, you never gave me anything. Now coming here to pretend deep feelings, what benefit does that bring?" Sebastian bowed deeply toward me, his voice extremely sorrowful. "I know I've failed you greatly. For the rest of my life, I will try my best to make amends. I only ask that you give me one chance." I replied with extreme anger and opportunity. "Fine, I'll give you one. I was kidnapped by those bandits because Grace caused it. You kill her, and I'll forgive you." Sebastian raised his head to look at me, as if he couldn't believe I would make such a demand. He said in a low voice, "Impossible. My cousin's family has been kind to me. I cannot harm her life. Now I've already sent her away from Sebastian Estate. From now on, we'll never meet again." Sure enough, I laughed coldly once. "Grace has harmed me so miserably, yet you still protect her wholeheartedly." I drew the dagger from my chest and held it against his neck. "Then you can use your life to compensate me. That way I can forgive you. After all, being pushed off the cliff was also the result of your deliberate choice. Calculating it, you originally owed me one life." Sebastian's body stiffened. This reaction showed that Grace hadn't deceived me from the very beginning. He had always understood clearly that the woman he chose would be pushed off the cliff. Hatred surged in my heart, and I couldn't help but apply a little pressure. Fresh blood flowed out, staining the blade red. Sebastian cried out in pain and his body shook as he dodged away. He snatched the dagger from my hands and then hugged me against his chest. I'm truly sorry, Luna. I have countless wrongs. You can hit me or scold me, but you absolutely must not attempt to kill a court official, or it will implicate the Ning family. Thinking of my relatives, my rationality suddenly awakened. Those who hold military power fear most having too much power and reputation. My father, who had guarded the frontier for decades, possessed both. Moreover, he was also the confidant of the former emperor, which made the new emperor even more suspicious. That's why the new emperor thought of marriage arrangements for sons-in-law like Sebastian to take over the military power in my father's hands. I couldn't kill Sebastian, but I could choose not to marry him again. I took several deep breaths, and after calming my emotions somewhat, I turned and left. I have to go back and think of a solution. In this life, I would rather die than have any connection with Sebastian again. Outside the wine shop, Adrian was standing quietly by the door. He didn't ask anything, just extended his hand toward me. I hurriedly ran over and used all my remaining strength to say to him, "Quickly take me home." Having someone close by for support, I could finally let down my guard. Before my vision turned black, I felt myself falling into a warm embrace. Just recovered from serious injuries and having to endure such stimulation again, I felt sharp pains in my chest. Adrian took over the work of the servants. Every day he would grind medicine and bring it to my room. My mother hinted that he was an outsider and a man, so he shouldn't enter my room frequently. Adrian pretended not to understand, and just like last time when I was unconscious, he persistently kept watch by my bedside. When my father returned, I had the servants withdraw, including Adrian and my mother. I asked father if he was willing to hand over military power and retire. I didn't want to be arranged in marriage with Sebastian again. The only solution I could think of was for father to resign from office to reduce the emperor's suspicions. Unexpectedly, when I asked one thing, father answered another, asking me back, "Why don't you want to marry that boy Sebastian?" Before I could answer, he continued, "I've heard some rumors these past few days. His Majesty is suspicious of me. This morning I already expressed my intention to resign to His Majesty, but His Majesty still seems to want to arrange a marriage between you and Sebastian." The door was pushed open. Adrian walked in and directly knelt before my father, kowtowing 3 times. "I want to marry Luna. 3 years ago when I first met her, I fell in love at first sight. I've only been waiting for the day when I have some gold and silver to return and confess my feelings. Whether in the past, present, or future, my heart and soul belong to her alone. In this life, if not her, then I won't marry anyone. I swear on my brother's soul." The last sentence made my whole body tremble. This oath was too serious. My mother helped Adrian stand up from behind, looking very satisfied. "If he becomes our son-in-law, it would be wonderful." My mother took a breath and said, "This child truly loves our daughter. Luna, what do you think?" 3 pairs of eyes in the room stared at me. I evaluated Adrian. 3 years ago, when he had just arrived here, he was still a boy who only reached my father's shoulders. Now he was already half a head taller than father. His facial features fit the standard of a scholarly, refined gentleman, fair and handsome. I heard that the number of noble ladies in the capital who wanted to marry him was almost equal to that famous handsome young lord who had just returned to the capital. I said, "I want to speak privately with Adrian." So I asked my parents to leave first. Indeed, there was no better solution than marrying him. Everyone knew he was the younger brother of my life, saving benefactor, and also knew that I brought him to the Ning estate to repay a debt. My marriage to him could be explained to outsiders as developing feelings over time, or as repaying the life-saving debt with my body. Even the emperor couldn't say there was anything wrong with it. It's just that I didn't love him, and I had a complicated past with Sebastian from the previous life. In the previous life, I married him to avoid the arranged marriage, which was very unfair to him. Adrian sat down beside the bed again and looked at me. "What I said to the general was the truth, Luna. I've been watching you for a long time." This sentence was too straightforward, making me unable to respond. I could only cover my chest and cough twice. I asked him softly, Can you listen and see if my parents have gone far? Adrian nodded in confirmation. Yes, they're far away. Good. I want to tell you some things that might shock you. After you hear them, carefully consider whether you still want to persist in marrying me. I turned to look at the top of the bed curtain and began to reminisce, slowly recounting to him a past between me and Sebastian. After listening, Adrian was silent for a while and said to me, I'll also be frank with you. The matter of rebirth doesn't only involve you and him. There's also me. My falling in love with you at first sight was something from the previous life. I suddenly turned to look at Adrian. I could be certain that in the previous life, I had never seen this face before. Where had he seen me? Why did he fall in love at first sight? You must have many questions in your heart right now. After we get married, I'll slowly tell you everything. I will have no secrets in front of you. I grasped his hand tightly. I accept the marriage. This matter cannot be delayed any longer. According to the timeline of the arranged marriage in the
You and I have no future relationship. We shouldn't meet again. Please treat each other as strangers. But I won't wish you happiness for the rest of your life. Someone like you doesn't deserve happiness. Luna probably doesn't remember clearly that when you were 8 years old, you followed your mother to the north and passed through a small county. You happened to see my brother collapsed by the roadside. My mother was forced by the village chief and couldn't bear the humiliation, so she committed suicide. My father was beaten to death by the village chief's thugs while seeking revenge. My brother went to the county office every day to beat drums and appeal for justice because he wanted to seek justice, but the officials all covered for each other. No one paid attention to my brother's pleas. It was Luna who saved my brother, heard his grievances with tears in your eyes, and asked your father to uphold justice for us. Later, my brother heard that the northern general wanted to recruit soldiers and didn't hesitate to enlist. He said he wanted to repay the debt. In the previous life, my brother died saving the general. In this life, he died saving Luna. When I was reborn, it was a bit late, so I couldn't change my brother's fate. Fortunately, an old Taoist told me that my brother had already been reincarnated into a wealthy family. In the previous life, I followed my brother's instructions before enlisting to study seriously and take the examinations to achieve official rank. I was determined to become a good official and eliminate all those corrupt officials. At 21, I was finally able to enter the capital for the imperial examinations. When I saw Luna, you had already become someone else's wife. I stood from far away watching you stand under the willow tree by the lake, charmingly chasing a butterfly perched on a flower branch nearby. Indeed, just as my brother described, you were a beauty who gave a feeling of peaceful years. My heart was pounding, but I could only quietly retreat. Your husband was a young general who already had countless military achievements and a virtuous reputation, while I was just a country boy who had struggled to achieve some small accomplishment that no one cared about. You were the bright moon who should be beside the brilliant sun. But you weren't happy. Your husband was very notable in the capital. There were many rumors about you two as a couple. I listened everywhere and learned that your husband had a white moonlight in his heart, treated you coldly, and even ignored it when his Moonlight's younger brother came to provoke you. I waited for Gregory for 10 days. After he finished causing trouble and came out, I grabbed him in a sack and broke one of his legs. Later, you followed the army to the north. When news of your death in battle came, I had already volunteered to go to the northern frontier to follow the northern general. I had long requested to live in seclusion, defeated the enemy troops, and retrieved your body. After your funeral was over, I suddenly felt this life had no meaning and decided to write a resignation letter to the emperor. At that time, an old Taoist knocked on my door, begging me to stay and continue as an official. He said he observed the celestial signs every night and discovered that if good generals withdrew, this court would fall into the hands of treacherous officials, and the fate of this country would collapse. I didn't respond and continued writing my resignation letter. The old Taoist became anxious and asked me, if I give you another chance, with the condition that you dedicate your entire life to supporting the country and society, would you be willing? I took out another piece of paper and wrote a paragraph to give to the old Taoist. I wrote, if you grant me one chance, I vow to use my entire life to repay this debt. The old Taoist said my wish was originally destined by heaven. But human hearts are changeable and human desires are hard to predict. I had to work harder myself. Fortunately, my efforts achieved results. Luna seemed to not have recognized that you were increasingly trusting and relying on me. Time passed, and what people had waited for so long finally came. You turned back. Those wishes from years past were fulfilled one by one. After Luna got married, my heart was like dead ashes. I requested to guard the border. I heard that you and your husband were harmonious and loving. I had obtained everything that ordinary people desired since birth, yet I lost the only person who truly loved me. Thinking about it is truly sad. I had claimed to be smarter than others since childhood, but I was blinded by affection and couldn't see Grace's true nature clearly. After I sent that woman away, she tore off her gentle disguise for the first time and screamed at me frantically. It turned out she had been entangling me for so many years without letting go because her mother, in order to marry her to me, had secretly forced the person she loved to death. After her mother died saving you, she transferred all her hatred for her mother onto me, swearing to make me taste the feeling of living uneasily for a lifetime, without anyone's love. The wrong choice I made at the cliff that year will forever be a heart disease that follows me for life. Luna was right, my guilt toward my deceased mother was compensated for by hurting you. I truly am a shameless and despicable person. Now I no longer have the ability to salvage anything. I foolishly prayed to gods and Buddha, wanting to know if Luna and I could be reborn once more to continue our past relationship. Finally, when I was near the end of my life, Master Hong Yuan, the most famous in the capital, finished his travels and decided to return to the capital. I hurriedly ran to him. After going 3 times, the master finally agreed to see me. I asked if Luna and I still had a chance to continue our earthly relationship. The master looked at me for a while, then closed his eyes. I knelt there from daytime until the stars filled the sky. The master finally slowly opened his mouth. Benefactor, I've seen a bit of heavenly secrets. You and the person you wished to be with originally had no destiny. It was only because fate was disrupted that the wrong connections were made. The current outcome is what should have been the beginning. As humans, please don't be too greedy. After leaving the temple, I staggered and almost fell down the mountain. I understood what the master said. Luna and I originally shouldn't have been together. Being able to become husband and wife in the previous life was originally a disruption of fate that accidentally favored me. I was in happiness but didn't know how to treasure it. I regret it deeply, but now it's too late. Luna's story offers profound lessons about love and self-respect. First, never sacrifice your dignity to chase unrequited love. Luna spent 10 years trying to change herself to earn Sebastian's affection, only receiving coldness and disdain in return. This shows that true love must be mutual respect and appreciation, not one-sided sacrifice. Second, know when to let go. When Luna realized Sebastian deliberately chose her as a sacrifice, she decided to completely move on instead of continuing her delusions. Third, genuine happiness comes from those who truly love us, like Adrian, who silently protected Luna through 2 lifetimes. This reminds us that we deserve authentic love and shouldn't accept toxic relationships out of fear of loneliness. Fourth, manipulation and emotional abuse have consequences. Sebastian's cruel treatment of Luna's feelings eventually led to his own misery and regret. Finally, second chances are opportunities for growth and better choices. Luna's rebirth allowed her to recognize her worth, choose genuine love over obsession, and find the happiness she truly deserved with someone who valued her completely.